What if you don't need to pivot? What if you're just tired, inconsistent, or one boundary away from your next breakthrough? Today, we're talking about how to tell the difference because every hard season doesn't mean you have to start over. Welcome back to the Jameela Adams Experience, the podcast for women over 40 who are building businesses, finding their voice, and learning how to grow without losing themselves in the process. And listen, today's episode is for every entrepreneur that has ever looked at her laptop and thought, do I need to pivot? Or do I just need it now? Because honestly, it can be hard to tell. And when there's a slow season, it can be frustrating, like a frustrating launch or low engagement or just plain burnout. Everything starts to feel like a sign. Every little inconvenience starts whispering, maybe I should burn everything down and be somebody else this coming Tuesday. So last week we talked about growth without the grind. And the response to that episode is very incredible because it told me something. A lot of you out there are tired of the hustle culture, wearing a cute outfit and calling it success. So today we're talking about pivots, the real ones, the necessary ones, even the fake ones we create when we're overwhelmed, discouraged, or even avoiding the discomfort that comes with being visible. Not trendy pivots, not emotional pivots, not the kind where you change your niche 3 times or you pick a new brand color or two and then call it alignment. We're talking about the intentional growth, the one that comes with honesty, reflection, and paying attention to patterns because every uncomfortable season does not mean it's time to reinvent yourself. Sometimes the right move is change. Other times it is consistency. And sometimes it is rest, it's support, it's a better boundary. So if you ever question your direction, and we all have, stay to the end of the episode and we'll find ways to be clearer and when it's time to evolve, or whether you just need to recommit to what you already have. So let's get into it. The internet made pivoting look sexy. Somewhere along the way, entrepreneurship got obsessed with reinvention. Everybody's rebranding, everybody's pivoting, everybody's evolving. And sure, some of that looks inspiring. It looks bold, it looks brave, it looks visionary. But if we're not careful, we'll start confusing motion with progress. Now, let me get this clear. Growth is normal. Evolution is normal. You're supposed to change as you gain experience, wisdom, confidence, and data. But some people are not pivoting because they have grown. They are pivoting every time accountability shows up. If something doesn't work right away, they'll call it misalignment instead of progress. If a launch feels slow, they'll think the offer was wrong. If the content doesn't pop off in 2 weeks, they think the niche is wrong. If showing up feels vulnerable, they decide the whole brand no longer fits. And that's dangerous because it traps you in a cycle of starting over. New message, new audience, new offer, new strategy, new look. Same unresolved habits though. Starting over can feel productive because you're busy. You are designing, you're planning, you're renaming, you're reorganizing. But busy does not always mean fruitful. Momentum comes from when you stay with something long enough to learn from it, refine it, and let people trust it. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't reinvention. It's staying visible, refining what you already have, and giving strategy enough time to grow past the awkward stage. How to know when it's time to pivot? A real pivot usually does not come from one bad week. It usually comes from repeated patterns and deeper clarity. It happens when you've paid attention long enough to realize something's consistently off. Not just hard, not just inconvenient, but truly misaligned with where you are and where you want to go. A real pivot may be worth considering if you keep seeing the same signs like these. Your business no longer fits your lifestyle. Your audience has evolved. Your energy is gone. Your offers feel disconnected. You look successful on paper, but you're unhappy in real life. And if any of these landed hard for you, let me say this clearly. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to update the way that you work, the people you serve, the offers you sell, and the kind of life your business was meant to support. You don't have to stay loyal to a business model, I should say, that no longer fits the woman that you are becoming. Maybe it worked before. Maybe it helped you survive. Maybe It even made you good money, but it's no longer healthy, sustainable, or meaningful if you are allowed to choose differently. That is not failure. That is maturity. That is discernment. And sometimes it's exactly what the next level requires. But if it's no longer healthy, sustainable, or meaningful, you're allowed to choose differently. That's not failure. That is maturity. That is discernment. And sometimes it is exactly what it takes to get to the next level. When you don't need to pivot. Now, here's the part people don't always like. Sometimes it's not the issue of the business, it's not the offer, the niche, the audience, or the market. Sometimes the issue is simply a lack of consistency. You may not have marketed long enough. You keep changing strategies before you gave it time to work. You stop posting when engagement dips. You go quiet when sales are slow. You try one webinar, one email, one launch, and suddenly the whole thing is broken. Or maybe, and let's get truthful here, you are avoiding visibility because growth requires being seen. It requires repetition. It requires letting people hear about the same offer more than once without assuming you're bothering them. And being seen can feel vulnerable, especially if you spent years being told to be humble, be quiet, and don't take up too much space. So instead of promoting the offer, you redesign the logo. Instead of the pitch, you decide to explore a new direction. Instead of building trust, you hide in planner mode. Listen, fear is expensive. It costs time, momentum, money, confidence, and opportunities that might have grown had you just stayed the course a little bit longer. If you're not careful, you'll keep calling self-sabotage alignment when what you really need is the courage and structure to follow through. So here are some questions before you pivot. Before you make any major changes, slow down and ask yourself a few honest questions. Am I reacting emotionally? Have I given it enough time to work? Is this strategy broken or am I exhausted? Do I need to pivot or do I need better systems? Am I bored because I've outgrown this level? Those questions matter because not every uncomfortable season requires reinvention. Some seasons require discipline. Some require support. Some require better systems, clearer messaging, and or more realistic expectations. And yes, some really do require change. The goal is not to force yourself to stay in something that's dead and not to panic every time things get uncomfortable. The goal is to become wise enough to tell the difference. And that kind of wisdom can save you years of unnecessary detours. If this episode hit home for you, remember this. You don't constantly have to reinvent yourself to grow. Growth is not always loud, it's not always dramatic, it's not always a complete rebrand and a new shiny title. Sometimes growth looks like pivoting, other times it looks like simplifying, and sometimes it just looks like you're staying consistent and being in it long enough to finally see the results you've been praying for. So before you tear everything down, pause, get honest, look for patterns, check your energy, check your systems, check your fear. Then make a decision from a grounded place, not from exhaustion, ego, or panic. And honestly, learning the difference will save you a whole lot of time, stress, and unnecessary Canva redesigns. If this message blessed you, share this episode with another woman entrepreneur who may be questioning everything right now. And thank you for hanging out with me for another episode of the Jameela Adams Experience. So I don't take this time for granted, and I'm so glad that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next week.